Hey guys, welcome back to Aaron in Copenhagen. Did you know there's a secret museum in Copenhagen that you're not allowed to visit? Well, tonight, for one night only, I've been granted special access, so I'm going to take you inside with me. Let's go inside and I'll show you what's in there. So today we are going inside den Kongelige Afstøbningssamling. In English, that means the Royal Casting Collection. Casting in this instance refers to the approximately 2,500 plaster casts of famous sculptures the collection currently holds. It holds works of art from all over the world across thousands of years, and often the sculptures in this collection are actually in better condition than the real ones in their respective museums around the world. Normally, you aren't allowed inside this museum. All the statues just sit in the dark, closed up behind shutters. It didn't used to be like this, however. It did used to be an open museum that anyone could come visit. However, in 2016, the collection was officially closed to the public due to budget cuts, and also the building it's housed in is an old 17th century warehouse that isn't up to current modern-day fire safety codes. This would require costly renovations that apparently the Danish government doesn't want to make room in the budget for, and so there's been talk of moving the collection just to some random storage warehouse somewhere and selling the building on. Adding insult to injury, last I heard, there was even talk of selling the building to developers to turn them into luxury waterfront apartments. How awful would that be? Then the collection would be lost forever and no one could ever see it. Even just moving the collection to a new location would be terrible because so many of the fragile statues would get damaged or destroyed in the move. So you might be wondering, what's so special about a museum that's just full of famous copies of sculptures? Well, for one, you would never get this collection of sculptures all together in one place at one time, considering all the different cultures and countries and time periods it comes from. So it provides the local community with a great resource to be able to see these statues up close in person when they might not otherwise get the chance. Second of all, a lot of these statues are in better condition and more preserved than their original counterparts. So it gives a great opportunity to see the statues as they were intended to be. So it's really a shame that this museum is all just shut behind closed doors. I'm only able to get inside tonight because the museum opened for Copenhagen's annual Culture Night. It's an event they do each year where loads of different places around the city open up for special cultural events for one night only. So, as I mentioned before, the collection is housed in an old 17th century warehouse, or pakhus in Danish. This specifically was used for trade with Danish West Indian colonies. It's located right on the water's edge, right in between Nyhavn and the Little Mermaid statue. So for it to be completely closed to tourists is such a shame because it's so easily accessible, which I guess is also why it's so valuable to property developers who want to get a hold of the building. There's a local activist group fighting to save the museum called Venner af Afstøbningssamlingen. That mouthful translates to Friends of the Casting Collection, and they advocate for the restoration of the museum in its current location. Their members go to official meetings regarding the museum, fight for budget allowances, and so on. Their website is amazing. I think it's mostly or all in Danish, unfortunately, but that's what Google Translate is for if you only speak English. They post all the latest updates on their site, and it's free to become a member and be added to their mailing list. I myself have been a longtime member. Someone also came up with the wonderful idea of potentially adding another museum within the building to educate on Denmark's colonial history. All along the waterfront where this museum is located, it's covered with these traditional Danish trading warehouses from the 16th and 17th century. People don't realize that so much of Copenhagen's wealth came from things like sugar plantations, tobacco plantations, and yes, a lot of slavery. I get the sense that this is a touchy subject for some, but I think a museum like this is a hugely important idea to consider. This kind of history is so important to take seriously and to confront so that atrocities like this don't ever happen again. This kind of situation with the museum offers the perfect opportunity to create an educational center about this part of Denmark's past, even if it might be a difficult conversation for some. If you're interested in this part of Danish history, or no, I should say, the stories of West Indian Danes told from their perspective, what their lives were like, I really recommend this book called 𝗖𝗢𝗣𝗏𝗔𝗡𝗟 og andre vestindiske danskere. At the time of recording, I think it's only in Danish unfortunately, but it is such a good read. It tells the stories and biographies of Danish West Indian sailors, servants, and people of color who were born abroad in Danish colonies who later came to Denmark to work, whether willingly or not. It's by an author called Per Nielsen, and I'll link it down in the episode description below. It's full of pictures and personal letters, and it was just fantastic to read these stories straight from the voices of those whose stories are so seldom told. Anyway, now on to what you can do to help save this wonderful museum. First of all, you can join the Friends of the Casting Collection group. Even if you speak English, all you have to do is send them an email saying you'd like to join. We can show our support in numbers that way. Second of all, if you're local, spread the word amongst your connections and get in contact with SMK, which is Statens Museum for Kunst, the museum body in charge of the collection. Contact the media, newspapers, online blogs, anyone you think who has a platform that can help. The Friends organization themselves are on the ground trying to appeal to politicians and decision makers, and like I said, all the latest info on that goes up on their website. So if you're interested in learning more, that's an excellent place to start. Even just sharing this video on your social media pages or with friends or family so we can raise awareness and hopefully gain strength in numbers. You don't have to be a Copenhagen local. The closure of this museum would really be a tragedy for all of Denmark. So let's try and make our voices heard. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed a little peek inside the museum, and hopefully we can stop this museum from closing for good. See you next week.